My name is Luca De Angelis. Today I have a guest, Shanine, my girlfriend. Hi Shanine.
Hi Luca.
Cool. So she doesn't know anything about Axure at all. So
Zero.
Zero. So this is great because I wanna teach you something that I consider is quite advanced, but I will show you that even a novice user can understand it quite well.
Sounds good.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So today we're talking about Axure, and in this tutorial we're gonna see how to create adaptive views, so responsive prototypes, using a workflow that I kinda discovered recently, and I found it really effective. I've used it in a couple of projects, and it's working really well. It's a bit counterintuitive at first, but you'll see the benefits.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do at the beginning, just to set up the project, this is a new project, white canvas. The first thing I wanna do is I wanna enable the devices that we're gonna test it on. So we're gonna create a set of breakpoints.
Breakpoints.
Yeah, breakpoints, so that when resizing the screen, they will snap into view depending on the device that you have designed your wireframes for.
Okay, so like points or sections where it will change, where it knows to change.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it will snap, the same view will snap from a desktop to a tablet to a mobile device.
Okay.
Just resizing the browser when we export it.
Okay.
So what I do is I click on this little button on here, which is Adaptive Views, and it's very simple. By default, you have a base version that is not designed for any device. So you have to add the devices you want to test, you want to create the designs for. So the first thing, I'm going to add one device, and Axure already provides the presets for large displays, tablets, and phones.
Okay.
So let's add a few of those. I prefer to start with a mobile first approach so that I work from the more constrained screen up to the devices with larger screens, so that I make my life more difficult at the beginning, but then it's easier later on because I have more space. Whether if instead if you work the other way around, it's going to be more difficult to remove things from the interface. So it's a good approach. It's called mobile first.
It's easier to stretch it basically rather than trying to fit a massive amount into something very small.
Exactly. So let's add a portrait phone first. 320. This is added automatically, and it inherits from the base. Now in a minute I'm going to show you what it means. Let's add another device. Let's select another preset. In this case, I want to add, let's say, a tablet, right? And then I'll add another device. Let's add a large display. So in this mockup, we're going to test the same screen on three different screen dimensions.
Okay.
We're going to see how all of this works.
But only for portrait because you don't want to do landscape.
Yeah, exactly. That's my choice. It's just for this video, I want to only work on phone, tablet, and large displays in these configurations. Also because usually the tablet on landscape usually is the same design of a desktop.
Just shrunk a little bit.
No, actually usually it's roughly the same, exactly. So this is a good configuration for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, one thing I want to change, actually I'll show you that later, it's a little trick, I'll show you later. Okay, let's keep going on. So now we have these three configurations. As you can see here, now I have the three versions that we just added. Okay, 320 is the phone, this is the tablet, and this is the desktop. Okay, and the base instead, it's not connected to any one of those dimensions. It's not connected to any screen, it's just a base version. It doesn't make much sense, but now in this workflow, I'm going to show you how I use it.
Okay.
It's going to make sense. Okay, so have you seen when I created these different versions, how they inherited one another? Let me show you again. So the portrait phone inherits from the base. Okay. The tablet inherits from
the phone.
From the phone. And the desktop
From the tablet.
From the tablet, perfect. So they all inherit one another.
Okay.
So if you make some change in the base, it will be reflected up to the desktop.
Okay. So that's the purpose of the base, is to changes will be reflected for all of the things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I don't use it that way. I'm going to show you how I actually use it. But this is good. This is a good thing. If you have certain elements that, for example, you want to create a button, you want to give it a color, you just create it in the base version, and then in all of the other orientations, they're going to be inherited, so the button is always going to be red.
Okay.
But if you want to make it blue only for desktop, you can do that.
Can you change which ones they inherit from? So if you wanted the desktop to inherit from the phone, for example, but not the tablet, can you organize that?
Yeah, exactly. You can do that. I don't suggest to do it because then it becomes a little bit messy to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Instead, in this workflow that I use, it's always consistent. You start from the base and it goes all the way up. Okay, it's a much neater, cleaner way to work. Cool. So now we have these three versions. If I switch now, you're going to see that this is the margin of the view, in this case for the tablet. This is for the phone, and this is for the desktop. Okay, it's going to be there.
Okay.
These are the margins. So by default, Axure gives us a rough canvas where we can work within. Okay, cool. So now the document is being set up. And from now on, I'm going to show you another approach that I love, and it's all based around using masters. Masters are like an advanced feature in Axure where you can create a component that is reusable. So you don't have to recreate it each time. Let's say you have 2 or 3 pages in your prototype, and you always have the same header or the same footer. Then you create it once in the master, and you drag the master into each one of those views, and they are all gonna be connected to the original master. So if you want to change something in your header, you change it once instead of changing it in each page.
Saves a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let me show you. Let's create a header. Okay, now I can jump inside the header. At the top here, you can see that I have the home page, but now instead I'm inside the header. I'm working within the component of header. Okay, in the header, for example, we could have, let's say, a background. Now this is gonna look quite weird, but I'll explain it. We can have, for example, an image, let's say a placeholder for our logo. Okay. And then maybe we have a couple of links. Let's say, for example, a link to the home, a link to products. Now, this is not how I would actually create links, but it's just for the sake of the example, okay? Products and contact us. Okay. Yeah, and that's all. Let's say that that's all for the moment. Now, you can see that in the base version, I added a background, a placeholder for our logo, and then a list of links.
Yeah.
Okay. So they don't look quite like a header, do they?
No.
No, not at all. And this is the great thing about this approach. So in the base version, I only list all the elements that I'm going to use in a single component or in a whole page. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I just list out all the elements. I don't care about how they look. It's just
the fact that they're there.
Absolutely.
It's like noting them down.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just a backbone.
Okay.
Okay. Why? Because now I can jump into each one of those sections and now I can work on them. So now I'm going to decide how the header is going to look in the 320 on phones. Okay. So as you can see in 320, we have the same elements because they
exist in the base.
Yeah, exactly. They exist in the base and have been inherited from the base. It's only because of that we see the elements in the same position that they were in the base, because they are connected. So if we go up, you will see that they all have the same elements because they are connected to the base. Okay, now I'm in the 320. I'm going to change this, okay, to a navbar.
Okay.
What happens to the 768?
It should do the same thing, but will it still stretch to the right margin automatically or not?
No, it won't. But you're right. You see, in the 720, it reflects what I've done in the 320.
Yeah.
Because, again, those two are connected. But now the base looks different, right? Because I changed the phone.
Oh, okay, and you didn't change the base.
Exactly, the base doesn't inherit from 320,
yeah.
Okay? So this is quite cool. It really gives you a lot of flexibility in deciding how each page looks, although you're using the same elements, okay? So quite cool. Let's work this thing out. So I'm gonna add my logo here. And then I'm gonna add these ones here. Okay? This is not how I would actually design a mobile interface because it's untappable, but just for the example that we are creating is fine. Okay, now this doesn't look right. Okay, this is the portrait version of the tablet.
Yeah.
Right? So we could extend it all the way down, all the way up here. Right? We could actually make this maybe a little bit bigger. We can just change it as much as we want. Again, it's just an example.
Yeah.
And now on the desktop version, now we can take advantage of all the space that we have in here and do all sorts of things. Again, it's just an example. Right?
Okay. How do you know that, I mean, I know this is an example, but how do you know that each one is going to be kind of the exact equivalent in size or the dimensions are going to be equal as they increase? Or is there a way of doing it so that it's equal or mathematically more correct than just dragging and guessing the size difference?
But yeah, you could, for example, drag guides from here,
okay,
position the guide at 10, and now all the elements, for example, are positioned at 10.
Okay.
And then each version could have its own guidelines.
Cool.
Good question. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So the base now looks always like this, just a list of elements, and then we have the three different versions. This is the header, so it's not being placed anywhere. Let's add it to the home page. So first thing, I always work on the base, and then I work up to the other views. So I drag it, and I place it there. So you can see that this is red because it's a master.
Okay.
Okay, so now since the component has been created with the adaptive views, in the home page, everything is gonna be responsive automatically. So now I'm thinking in components. I'm not thinking about the single element anymore. Because I've already done all the responsive thinking when I was creating the component. Okay, let's create another one. Let's add a footer. Okay, so as usual, I start from the base. I'll add a background, and again, I could add another little logo. We're gonna make it small later, and maybe have a small description of the company, right? And if we want an input field for, I don't know, maybe to collect emails, right? Yeah, let's add the submit button. And the title, a label here. Okay,
Cool.
Now I'm going to show you a couple of other tricks. So if you noticed, I always work from the base up, and I have to change each and every element in each one of the versions. Okay, if I don't touch one of those elements now, let's say I leave this here, if later on I'm gonna change something in the base, it's gonna change my views without me knowing it. I'm gonna explain it better. Whenever I'm in one of those views and I change some of the properties of one element, I'm gonna detach it from the original one, from the one it's inheriting from. In this case, from the base, because 320 inherits from the base, right? Exactly. So the act of changing some of the properties it's going to detach those properties from the original version.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing here. I'm actually creating a disconnection, although the element is inherited in the same way. I'm changing the properties so that later on I know that all those elements are disconnected from the base, at least the positioning. So I know that's because trying it multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
you will see that sometimes things start to move around and you don't know exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, that's why, because you haven't moved them from the base version.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is true if in the base version you start to design your interface instead of just listing the elements as I'm doing here vertically.
Okay, so it's best to put all the elements into the base and then move them around in each one.
Exactly. In this version, in the base version, you don't care about the layout.
Yeah.
It's just a vertical
It's just
list.
there to have everything there.
Absolutely. It's like colors for a painter.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then you do the drawing with the colors.
In each one.
Okay. What else? For example, there are properties that you can change from one version to the other version, so that they disconnect from the one they inherit from. For example, in the 320, we just changed the dimension of this box, right? And the original one hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
We could also change the color. For example, if I change the color of this button only on this interface, it's not going to affect the base because it's only in 320. It's going to affect though the other ones, the other views that inherit from 320.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me show you an example. Let's change the color of the submit button. Let's make it blue. Okay, just for a second, showing what happens. So in the base version, it's going to be black because the base version doesn't inherit from 320.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, in 768,
it'll be blue there.
It'll be blue.
Yeah.
And also on the desktop version.
Okay.
Okay, so with colors, positioning, dimensions, they're all going to inherit.
So if you change something in 768 or the tablet, it would reflect in the 1200 desktop, but not in the phone.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And again, it's really powerful. Because this way you can start customizing the different versions.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me undo that. Cool. Oops. Subscribe to our newsletter. Okay, let's make it look like a title. Okay, now there is an interesting thing here. So we've seen that certain properties are only inherited from the view that we are working in upward. Or in this workflow, they are always inherited upward, right? Like colors, positioning, and so on. Text, for example, cannot be changed from one view to the other. It's always connected to the original base version. So that means if I'm going to change this to subscribe, unfortunately, all of them are going to have subscribe, even the base.
Okay, so text and content has to be changed in the base.
You can change it wherever. Now I changed it in the 320. It doesn't matter.
It's just, okay.
It doesn't
it's still
get
this show everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It doesn't get disconnected from the original one. It's a bit counterintuitive, I know, but that's the way it works.
Yeah, because if you write a lot of content for a certain section, it's going to affect the layout and the sizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a limitation that Axure has at this stage. I don't know if they're going to fix it in the next version of Axure. That's a limitation. Okay, so let's work really quickly to the other versions. So then we can show the prototype working. Let's say that in the tablet and in the desktop, because remember we are working in both. Okay, let's do something like that. We can do this, right? And the desktop is going to be very similar. Now remember, this is quite ugly, but it's just an example.
I've seen uglier websites.
Yeah, I doubt it, but it can happen, yeah. Okay. Okay, so now let's see it again. Base version 320, 768, and desktop version in here. All looks good. Okay, great. So let's go back to the home. Same thing. Now I can just drag the footer in here.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I did something I should have done.
What's that?
Because if you remember, I should always start from the base.
And you dragged it into the
Yeah.
desktop instead.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the workflow is you start from the base. So what I do is, it doesn't matter where you put them. I just leave some space between the different components so that I see where one starts and the other ends. Okay. 320. Right? Okay.
That's good.
Okay, great. So let's see how it looks in the browser. So I'm going to export it with Shift Command P on Mac. Now we're testing it in the browser. Okay, now as you can see, there is some issue with it's a bit difficult to make the views snap, right? Because I need to be precise. Look at that. You see?
Oh, you need to hit that margin.
Exactly. I need to be exactly in that margin or less.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you a trick that I referred to at the beginning to make this much, much easier. So what I do is, in the adaptive views settings, here you will see that there is condition. So the name is large display. The condition is the screen must be greater than or equal to this size.
Okay.
Greater or equal. Actually, this one was fine. Yeah, less than or equal. You see on the phone, must be less than or equal. That means that your screen must be less than this for it to be shown, which is not what we want. I want it to be greater than or equal. This way, it will snap only when I get over 320. Okay? Now I'm going to show it in a second. You'll see what I mean. So I make them all greater than. Okay? Let's re-export it. Now you'll see that this is less than 320.
Yes.
And we see the base version, which we usually don't care about. Okay. Now, as I get 320 or greater, now I can see the mobile version. You see, now I don't have to be that precise. So it's a much better workflow for me. It works well for me because I don't have to be that precise. Same thing for the tablet version, right? And same thing for the desktop version, which we can't see because of this. Okay. That panel that I just closed, it's an inspector of all the pages that there are in the project. Okay, I can just close it. It's not important.
Okay.
So you can see now, instead, as I hit them, they will snap into the next.
The one below.
The one below, yeah, exactly. And it's a much better workflow. You don't have to be that precise, and you're always gonna see the view in the browser. Okay, you're never gonna cut it. Cool. Great. Okay, last thing I want to show. So we saw that we're going to inherit from one version to the other. But what about, let's say I have a header, this is the base. For example, I don't want to show all of these navigation in the mobile version, right? Because it's difficult to tap it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want to show it. So what can we do? Well, in this case, for example, we may want to add an icon, which is maybe an hamburger icon.
Yeah. And then that'll open to all of those instead.
Exactly. Now, we are not going to design all of that here, but I can show you how to make differences in contents between one view and the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I can simply select this. I can delete it, or I can do unplace from view. In each case, it's gonna remove it only from this view and from the views that inherit from that view. Okay, so in the base, is it gonna be there or not?
Yes, it'll be there.
Yes, it'll be there. You see, it's here. But now we lost it. So what do we do now for the other versions where we want to show it? Well, in that case, it's simple. You just copy this element, Command copy, Command C. Then we go into the views where we want to show it, and we paste it. Look at that. The copied widgets are emplaced in this view. That's because we unplaced them in 320, and this is inherited from it.
Oh, okay. So is unplacing in this view saying don't put it here, but it's okay to go everywhere else?
When you unplace it, you're actually removing it from that view and from the views that inherit from that view. It's removed. It's not there. But Axure is smarter, and when you try to paste the same element in, it will tell you, this widget, hey, I know this widget, I saw it before, I already know it, but it's not, this element is not visible in this view. What do you want to do? Do you want to paste it as another element, or do you want to place it so that it's gonna be visible? Okay, we're gonna use place. With place, it's gonna restore that connection between the base element and the view. Now 320 is not gonna have it.
Okay, so that's a way of differentiating between deleting it.
Yeah, exactly. No, even if you delete it, it's the same. Deleting or unplacing from view works in the same way. Okay, it's just another way to remove it. Okay, but you have to do this trick of copying and pasting it into the different versions. Okay, that's only because they are inherited one another. Okay, another thing, if you designed them before, if you remember this one is being moved, you see that they are in different places. Even if you remove it, you unplace it from the view, when you paste it back, it retains all the properties it had when it was visible. So you can see this is already placed where it was before. I didn't have to move it in place again. So it's smart, it's quite quick. It seems an elaborate system, but it's in reality quite quick once you grasp it. Okay, so now we can go on in our 320 version. Maybe we want to have the logo in the middle here, and we may want to show instead, I don't know, an icon. Let's use another placeholder for now, but you could drag an icon for a menu in here. Okay, well, let's use yep. Okay, so this could be the hamburger menu.
Yep.
Now you notice that I dragged this element in the 320 instead of working on the base.
Okay.
This is the hamburger menu. We're going to show it only in the mobile version. So I dragged it in this version, in the 320 view. Okay. Now, what happens is, it's not going to be in the base. And for me, it's fine. You know, I could have actually placed it. Sometimes I place all the elements of all the views in the base. And that's a good way of working. Other times, instead, I just copy them where they are needed. Okay. This is a quite advanced usage. I'm showing you how to manage differences of content between one view and the others. So I could have put this icon in the base and then unplaced it from 768 or the large display. Another way instead is just to place it where I need it and then remove it or unplace it from the next view. Okay. To be honest, probably I should have done this. Let's do it properly. I should have added it here. Okay. So what I do is I can now move these elements, and the fact that I move them is not going to affect any of the other views because
it's literally just components all put together there, and then they can be placed and made, designed. And
yeah, exactly. Okay, so now I'm adding these here. Now in the 320 it's going to be there. I'm going to place it here. Yeah, this is the correct way of working in this case. And now I unplace it from this view. And it's not going to be there in the larger display either. Okay. Now, as you can see, the version of the logo in the tablet portrait version, it's smaller than it was before. Do you remember? It was much larger.
Yes, I think so.
But I recently changed it.
Oh, okay, yeah, you changed it and moved it to the middle, so it would have affected how it appeared in 768.
Exactly.
Okay.
It didn't change the position because we changed the position originally, but it changed the dimension because the dimension was the same between both views.
Okay.
Okay, so positioning and dimension are two different constraints and they work differently. For example, in the desktop version, we actually made the logo bigger. So as you can see, this hasn't been affected by the change I did in the 320 because I already manipulated those properties, right? Okay, so let's go back to 768. Let's fix it. Now let's review all of them. Very good. Let's test it out. Okay, so desktop version, mobile version, tablet version.
Snap.
Yeah, and this one, we need to do this. Okay. So everything is working well. So yeah, that's the workflow I use, even for complex projects. So some of the base views of certain pages I work on are quite messy because they tend to become quite long. It's a long list of elements. But all in all, it saved me so many headaches and it makes everything work smoothly out of the box. You can imagine once you have more components, you need to create a new page. Imagine how easy it is now. I just drag and drop the components into the base version. Done. You know, my pages are already done. I don't have to change anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's a very good way of working, and even the position of the masters can be changed. So I don't have to leave them in the same place. If this page requires more space, I can simply do this.
So they essentially appear there, but then you can move them and manipulate them.
Absolutely.
Appearing.
Absolutely. So we learned how to create components, how to reuse masters, how to create the adaptive views, so that we create interactive prototypes that are already responsive out of the box. We saw this different way of dealing with all the views, and especially what I like the most is this way of laying out all the elements that are part of our pages, our screens, in this way that is completely unstructured. I really like this. In some way, it reminds me of when I used to code web pages.
Yeah.
Because when you work on the markup, on the structure, you separate the elements from the way they are seen on the screen. So having this development background helped me discover this methodology, which works really well for me mentally, because when you do coding, it's the same thing. You would just create a set of elements using semantic markup in HTML, and then with CSS you would create the different views using media queries, and all the elements would snap in from mobile up. So it's the same workflow that a developer would use. There is no code involved, but I think the mentality, the way of approaching it is really good and really clean, because it forces you as a designer to make certain decisions about which elements you're going to have and to work in reusable components.
And you're not kind of repeating yourself across each one either, which saves a lot of time too.
Yeah, absolutely. In complex projects, it's great. Like, it's a great way of managing complex prototypes
and
with
it's
Axure.
Much more cohesive as well.
Absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you for joining us, Janine.
Thank you for having me.
See you next time. Okay, cool. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section, and if you know anyone that could benefit from this video, thank you for sharing it with them. To stay up to date with my latest videos on user experience, interaction and visual design, subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. My name is Luca De Angelis. I'll see you in the next video.